Hello class, today I'll be doing a refutation speech on Tiffany Marino's claim that stated the recommended consumption of dairy products is not beneficial to human health. First, I want to mention how her proposition has a negative connotation within the word not, and I feel like that should have been referred in more differently, something like the recommendation consumption of dairy products causes negative human health and deficiencies. Three of her secondary claims stated that dairy consumption is linked to various diseases, dairy consumptions increase the risk of exposure to potential contaminants, and the consumption of milk beyond the waging age is unnecessary and unlikely harmful. First, I want to start off with the first claim that states that the connection between high-fat diets and the dairy do not have much connection with the quote presenter. So she mentioned how dairy has high fats, which is what causes the diseases that were mentioned, which was cardiovascular and cancer. There was a quote that mentioned that cow's milk is a source of potassium, which can enhance vasodilation and reduce blood pressure, increasing potassium intake and decreasing sodium, which can reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. So this quote was found by Megan Ward, the founder of Nutrition Awareness, in December 14, 2017. Her second claim stated that dairy consumption increases the risk of exposure to contaminants such as antibiotics and pesticides. So I did a lot of research with this claim, and it mentioned that when cows are injected with any antibiotics, their milk production goes to waste and does not go into the stores with the milks that we drink in the gallons. So for the milk, in order for the milk to be sold in the stores, they have to pass certain tests and certain stages for them to go. If the cows are injected with any sort of antibiotics, they do not pass the levels, and therefore they're not passed through with the store production, and that's how we get our milk through the stores. There was a quote that Dr. Joe Besser mentioned: milk is highly regular and there are many protocols in place to ensure it is safe. When antibiotics are used, they do not end up in the milk or dairy products found in stores. Every antibiotic used as labeled milk withdraws time set by the Food and Drug Administration, meaning a treated cow's milk is to be discarded and kept away from the food supply for a certain amount of time. During the time in which the cow is being treated with antibiotics, her milk is discarded and does not leave the farm. So if cows do get sick, and I know that what she mentioned was that the cows are injected with certain antibiotics to produce milk at a faster rate, but when cows are injected with antibiotics, their milk does not go into the gallons that we drink, that we buy from the stores. Her third claim stated that 75% of the world is lactose intolerant. I would like to mention that 75% of the world is lactose intolerant, but not all that percentage comes from drinking milk or just the amount of milk that is drank. Most of those people are lactose intolerant because of where they come from and their ethnic groups. There was a Cornell study that concluded that ethnic groups with ancestors from climates supporting the production of dairy cattle like Europe can digest milk better than those ancestors from places that do not have the right conditions for dairy cattle. These places include Asia and Africa. More people that also have trouble with the breakdown of milk or lactase is also from West African, Arab, Jewish, Greek, and Italian descent. So these people are not lactose intolerant due to the fact that they drink too much milk, or that the milk causes their stomachs to get upset. It's because their genetics do not have the ability to break down milk as much as other people do from different descents. Thank you for your attention.
Well, the opening comment is more of a critique rather than a response, and so that's probably not something that you have to worry that much about. The claims that are being made, that's where your arguments ought to be engaged in for the most part. I knew what the first point was when it came to the advocate's claim that there's a relationship to some kind of disease. You kind of, in essence, kind of talk about high fats being related to cardiovascular disease and cancer, at least that's what the advocate's claim is. I think that your next piece of evidence is an attempt to address that issue, but you don't really have a claim that you present here. And I think you need to make a claim. You need to tell us, because what you do is you basically read the evidence and then assume that we're going to figure out what the claim is from that. And your argument is that milk contains ingredients that actually fight these kinds of diseases. That's the claim. And then you give us you present the evidence first, and you're doing the post citing, which we told you maybe that's a little confusing. So give the source citation first before you present the evidence. But tell us what the claim is first, especially. I think you need to do that a little bit more. That milk's a high source of potassium, and that potassium is a strong fighter against cardiovascular disease and cancer because it lowers some of the things that cause those things. Then I could understand your argument a little bit more. As it is, I'm having to figure that out, and we shouldn't have to do that. You should be telling us what the claim is. The second point, I think what you've done basically is you've taken the evidence, you've turned the evidence into a claim, you present that claim, then you read the evidence, which sounds almost exactly like the claim does, and it sounds like it's repetitive in the point. Your argument on the second point really is that milk with excessive antibiotics is not going to go to the marketplace. That's the position that you're taking. You want to simplify what your claim is. You basically kind of paraphrase what the whole piece of evidence is being said without changing the wording and shortening the claim, but basically just kind of using slightly different wording, and some of it is exactly the same. Then when we get to I'm sitting here going, well, where's the source on this? Why are you saying this is true? And then you present a source that says exactly, like I said, almost word for word what the claim was. You just need to simplify your claim, make it easier to figure out. Milk with high levels of antibiotics don't reach the marketplace. That's what the argument is that you're making there. Because there are regulations and they do testing, and so that's going to protect people. And if it's the antibiotics that are causing the problem, they're unlikely to have that impact there. On the lactose intolerance issue, I'm not sure that the advocate was arguing that lactose intolerance was caused by people's excessive consumption of milk. You've got a perfectly valid point that lactose intolerance is a result of genetic factors and ethnic traits and characteristics about where people are from. That doesn't necessarily, I think the argument here is that doesn't necessarily show there's something wrong with consuming milk. Because somebody has an allergy to some food doesn't mean that somebody else shouldn't be able to use it and consume it and be perfectly healthy in regard to that. There are a lot of foods that people have allergies to that we don't suddenly see them as being dangerous or bad for somebody. We just know that some people can't eat those foods. They're equivocating an allergy, a problem with a food like that, as if that is some significant problem or harm. I think maybe that's the way to maybe diminish that argument and suggest that it's not really a disease, it's not a long-term harm, it simply means some people can't enjoy this food the way others do. That's not a big deal, and make the argument that way. All right, thank you.